tuned in to the Community Cats podcast. Ready? Let's go.
Welcome to the Community Cats podcast. I am your host, Stacy LeBaron. I have been involved helping homeless cats for over 30 years with the Merrimack River Feline Rescue Society. The goal of this podcast is to expose you to amazing people who are improving the lives of cats. I hope these interviews will help you learn how you can turn your passion for cats into action. And today, we're speaking with KerryAnn May, founder and president of Animal Outreach of Shelby County. She brings a unique blend of nonprofit management expertise and hands-on animal welfare experience to her work. She built her foundation in the nonprofit sector through management roles in affordable housing and economic development. Her passion for animal welfare began at FACE, Spay-Neuter Clinic, and grew through her work with Southside Animal Shelter, where she specialized in feral kitten fostering and adoption counseling. Kerry returned to her hometown of Shelbyville in 2007 to address the critical need for affordable spay-neuter services. Under her 15-year leadership, Animal Outreach of Shelby County has become Indiana's first multi-county TNR service provider, pioneering innovative solutions in community cat management. Kerry shares her home with her rescued special needs cats, Jenny and TBD, a rotating cast of foster cats. KerryAnn, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Stacy. I'm happy to be here.
So what an incredible bio. It's just really great to see all the skills and everything that you have been able to bring to community cat program management and just all the great work that you do and just thinking outside the box. But before we get into talking about some really cool projects that you've been involved with, how'd you get to be so passionate about cats?
Well, I didn't grow up with cats. I always grew up with dogs. And after college, I was walking my dog one evening and I found what I now know is a feral kitten in the bushes. And that's kind of where it started. I needed to get the kitten fixed. So I went to the FACE low-cost spay-neuter clinic in Indianapolis. And then that tumbled into me volunteering to wash cages after work and after the surgeries were done. And then I started volunteering with Indy Feral and then Southside Animal Shelter, and it just kind of blossomed from there. And so Indianapolis was my introduction to cat welfare some 20 plus years ago. And then I moved to Shelbyville and started cat welfare stuff there. So that it was an interesting kind of introduction by a feral kitten and had no idea what those were. But now I absolutely adore them.
So as a TNR organization, and you're a relatively small organization, sort of grassroots, very focused on, being out there in the community, how did you really learn to believe that trap, neuter, return was the best course of action for cat overpopulation?
Well, I never knew anything else. I got introduced to the whole feral cat ecosphere basically through a pro-TNR organization. So that was my first introduction. That was the only solution that was ever presented to me. And I trust experts. And so I heard that's what we were supposed to do. And so I said, okay, well, let's do it. So I do think that I was a little bit fortunate in that regard and that I didn't have any outside influences. I grew up in the military. And so for me, part of my bio is affordable housing. But in that regard, we didn't have issues with affordable housing in the military back 50 years because we all had base housing. But we also didn't have a problem with animals at the time. When I grew up, everybody took their animals with them. So when I got into the civilian world, it was a foreign concept to me. What do you mean there's a homeless animal crisis? Tell me more about this. And so that's how I got introduced to it when I found my first homeless kitten. And so I'm very lucky that FACE and Indy Feral were the ones that indoctrinated me into the whole TNR concept because they were great teachers and were very patient with me and let me get my feet wet pretty quickly and early on and pretty heavy. So it was fantastic.
Like you, with the Merrimack River Feline Rescue Society, the option of trap, remove, and euthanize was just not on the table. It was you were either going to rescue or you were going to do trap, neuter, return. And rescue was very dependent upon what sort of resources we had available to us at that particular time. And so, decisions were made based on whether there was room at the inn or not, or foster home or not. And you could put cats back at a feeding station for a while and then come back if it was necessary and trap that cat again and then bring it in and put up for adoption if that was the appropriate course. We had a feral cat committee and they would meet once a month and they would discuss the best outcomes for all of the cats that they were feeding down at the 14 feeding stations in the waterfront area. And, after a point in time, you had your established groups. And so it was more of the monitoring and the managing. But then when they first were trapping, it was, okay, who's going to get brought in, who needs to be adopted and who gets returned back there. And a lot of it was mainly kittens were being pulled off the waterfront area. So it's usually a decision around socializing kittens and that kind of thing. And I don't know if you have these challenges where you are right now, but do you have enough spay-neuter capacity for the TNR needs in your area?
I would say some organizations definitely don't have the capacity because they're still relying exclusively on the low-cost, high-volume spay-neuter clinics that are just swamped. We are very lucky in that we've been able to partner with a private practice veterinarian in the next county over, and they are helping us with monthly spay days, specifically for feral cats and only feral cats, or community cats, I should say. I don't really use feral anymore, and so that's what the Saturday clinics are. We're actually having one tomorrow, even though it's 20 degrees outside. Bryn was able to help us figure out how to do wintertime trapping, and so we're very excited about that. So we have those clinics on Saturdays, and we're looking to add more Saturdays, of course, as we're ramping up our operations. But then we're also able to use that clinic where we have 9 appointments a week that are available to us. And for our size organization, that's sufficient. And they do have capacity to add as we need it. And so we're looking forward to growing our pretty much our adoptable program is what we use the weekday appointments for. We exclusively reserve the Saturday clinics just for community cats. So we don't have a shortage right now, but if that clinic was to shut down, oh my goodness, I don't know what we would do. And it's also affordable. They charge us $60 or $70 per cat, which is super affordable for us.
So you were just talking about ramping up, scaling up. So your organization has been growing over time. You have participated in the Community Cats Grants program, and I believe you were talking about one fundraiser that you did, which at that point needed to raise $1,000, and there was the $1,000 match. And then I think you said something recently where you now make $50,000 out of that specific fundraiser. Just share a little bit about the Community Cats Grants program, and then with all of that money, we've got to talk about the equipment and how you manage that equipment.
We were in the very first group of the Community Cats Podcast Grant Program, and I had my eye on direct mail or person-to-person fundraising for a long time, and I just didn't know how to do it. And I wasn't really into doing events in that I'm that stereotypical introvert cat person. Planning a party or an event, just, oh my gosh, it just is not for me. So I was really into learning how to do the direct mail. I saw the big organizations doing it like Best Friends, Alley Cat Allies, ACE-PCA. So I knew that's where the money was going to be for us. And it was much easier for us to be able to control our time and resources doing it that way. And I could do it by myself. I didn't have to rely on volunteers or anything like that. And so we applied to the program, and we were overjoyed when we were accepted into it. We were very clear from the very beginning that we were going to do direct mail. And I also knew that the $1,000, it was $1,000 in the beginning. So it is a different amount now, but in the beginning it was $1,000. And so we knew that if we could use that $1,000 to use it as a match to our community and say, if we raise $1,000, this wonderful foundation will give us another $1,000, which was an impossible amount of money for me to fathom at the time that we would have that much money in our account. Stacy, it wasn't uncommon for me to look at one of the other volunteers and say, well, we have to help this cat, but how are we going to pay for it? And my right-hand person would always say her mantra was, we'll figure it out. And so I just wanted to break that cycle of always panicking. So we were able to do the $1,000 match. We wrote a letter, actually mailed it out to about 50 people. That's what our mailing list was at the time. And we had one person that panicked when they saw the letter and said, oh my God, I can't imagine them not getting the $1,000. We have to give them the $1,000. And so we very quickly raised, I think it was $1,700 on that first mailing. And so then I knew it was proof of concept at that point, which I think is what Community Cats Podcast Grant is really about. It's about helping smaller organizations do proof of concept for whatever fundraising activity they're thinking about doing. And it's that infusion, it's that excitement of getting the bonus money, basically, whether it's $1,000 or $2,000. So we stuck with it. I realized that that's what our jam was going to be when it came to fundraising. And I got a fundraising coach at a very modest cost. And this last year, we raised over $50,000 from individual donors. And I would like to say that because of that fundraising program, we now have an office. We have an actual home base instead of being scattered about the county and all the little nooks and crannies that we could find to have our stuff. We now have it all centralized in one location. And we never would, we may have gotten to it eventually, but I think it really was accelerated by that infusion of the grant to be able to say, hey, we can do this and this is our path forward and we're going to go for it. So if anybody's thinking about doing direct mail or fundraising in that regard, we're happy to talk to anybody about what our path was as a small organization. I'm very encouraging to other groups to be able to try it, but try it in the right way and write the right kinds of letter. And boy, that Community Cats Podcast Grant, that is just phenomenal to the community. They really do respond to that. So
Excellent. Well, I'm really glad that you were able to participate couple of times. We hear so often, oh, well, you can't raise money for spay neuter. You can't raise money for TNR. And again, you just said proof of concept. You can fundraise for trap, neuter, return, for spay neuter. You have to just learn how to craft your stories, your letters, all of those things. What's going to drive a person to want to contribute to your organization? You mentioned you're in an office. You're able to have your traps. I assume you must have a lot of equipment. You do foster care too. So that has equipment. And you sound like you're a very organized person. You sound very organized. You said you like everything, everything has a place and it's in its place and all that. How have you been able to manage all of your traps, your drop traps, your cages for your foster care supplies? What have you done to kind of be able to manage all of that?
Yeah, so, for years in different animal rescue groups, the Community Cats Podcast Facebook group, we talk about this all the time. How are you guys keeping track of your traps? And everybody's always got some hodgepodge method of doing it, an Excel spreadsheet. I keep something in the notes thing in my iPhone. Everybody has a different way of doing it. And the problem really becomes there's usually not just one person that's managing the stuff. Many volunteers have access to the equipment. Things happen very quickly out in the fields. You were going to loan somebody 3 traps, but now they need 5. And so it's really been a struggle for us for a number of years. I will be completely transparent. About 10 years ago, I stored 10 traps in somebody's pole barn or horse barn. I don't know who has them. They still have them to this day. Couldn't remember who it was, didn't write it in a note in my phone or write it down anywhere, or if I did, I lost it. That's really frustrating to lose life-saving equipment and then to have to replace it all. It's just very frustrating. So this has always been percolating under the radar kind of thing. Everybody's been struggling with it. And I was in an executive director's Facebook group, not related to animals in any way, shape, or form. And somebody was asking about asset management. And they mentioned Asset Tiger. And so, of course, I was intrigued. I don't remember what they were managing equipment-wise, but it was enough for me to go check it out and see what it was. And I think it was about 2 years ago when I checked it out and bookmarked it and said, oh, I need to come back to that. I need to look at it. And it really became an issue when we were granted an equipment grant from Mission Meow. And it was a sizable grant for us. I think it was almost $7,000 to buy 30 traps, drop traps, playpens, incubators, feral dens. I mean, we're talking a sizable infusion of equipment. And the reason why we were needing this equipment is that we were expanding to the county adjacent to us. They didn't have any TNR services, and we kept getting requests from people in their county to help them. And so we just took the plunge and said, we'll figure out how we're going to pay for it later, but we're going to do it. And Sally was fantastic enough to see our vision and to invest in us. And so we had all of this equipment. But then it became, boy, this is really a lot of stuff to keep track of. And we would keep it in 3 storage units, 2 garages, a basement. I mean, it literally was scattered across the county because we didn't have space in any one particular place. Well, about that time, we also got office space and we bought a trailer to keep on site. So then I was thinking, okay, let's go check out this Asset Tiger and see what it can do for us and if it really is everything that people say that it is. And so I sat down and it took me about 5 minutes to enter all 30 traps that we had just gotten from the grant. I mean, 5 minutes. That's impressive. And so then I checked out 10 traps to myself to see how quick that took. You do it on your phone. I mean, it's just so easy. So anyway, so I became convinced that this was going to be a good solution for us. And so I took the plunge and I entered everything in and it's going swimmingly. So I just totally got off track there. I totally lost my train of thought. Sorry about that. But
No, it's fantastic. How long have you been using this system?
well, we've been using it for about 4 months now. And the value of the assets that we have entered into Asset Tiger right now is a little over $12,000 in assets. And as of today, we have 25 actual assets checked out for a value of almost $5,000. So I just can't imagine how I would be keeping track of that without having some, nifty little system of doing that.
Confident, compassionate, certified. If you're ready to make a real difference for community cats, it all starts with the right training. Join us this weekend for the next TNR certification workshop, presented by Neighborhood Cats and hosted by us, the Community Cats Podcast. This expert-led interactive online event will walk you through everything you need to know, from planning a trapping project and using the right equipment, to colony care, dealing with tough neighbors, and working with spay-neuter clinics. Whether you're just getting started or want to sharpen your skills, this workshop will help you trap smarter and save more lives. All attendees receive a digital certificate after passing a brief quiz, plus access to a private Facebook group for ongoing support, along with extensive handouts and resources. Can't make it live? We got you. Registration includes access to the full recording and all handouts. Get all the details and register now at communitycatspodcast.com/TNR. That's communitycatspodcast.com/TNR.
TNR work isn't easy. You trap them, you neuter them, you release them back into a world that barely notices they're there. It can be exhausting. It can feel never-ending. But the work you're doing, it matters, especially to the cats who rely on you. At Rescue Disinfectants, we see the work you do, the work few are willing to take on. Our powerful, vet-trusted disinfectants help you clean traps, carriers, cages, and litter boxes without the harsh chemicals that could harm the fragile lives you're fighting for. Let Rescue be there for them and for you. Visit rescuedisinfectants.com to help reduce disease risk and support better outcomes for community cats. In a recent study, 97% of respondents said that pets are family. Communities can play a vital role in helping to keep families together, whether it's reuniting lost pets with their owners, donating pet supplies or funds for pet owners in need, or offering short or long-term fostering. People can help keep pets and their people together. We just have to show them how. Did you know there are resources you can use to help bring attention to the programs you offer to help them do just that? From public service announcements, short videos, printable posters, online and social graphics, and much more. Find your resources at www.petsandpeopletogether.org/campaign-resources. #be a helper.
The other thing is that sometimes when folks would ask if they could borrow traps, I would get a little gun shy and I wouldn't want to loan them the really good traps because I didn't know if I was going to get them back. And so I would hesitate. And that's really not fair to the cats. So I think the Asset Tiger is really good in that I'm able to keep track of everything. And I don't hesitate now. I'm very aggressive with folks now. How many traps do you want to borrow? How many, can I get you 4? How about 5? Why don't you take 6 while you're at it? And I'm giving them the really good traps, the ones that make their life easy for caring for the cats in the trap instead of making it harder.
We're going to include the video that you shared about the process. It'll be in the show notes. So I encourage folks to check out the video because that helps explain a lot. You use QR codes.
Yes.
In video. They like everywhere you turn, there's a QR code. So people are scanning, they're entering information in. That's what's keeping everything sort of in the library of what this software program does. Now, when people are borrowing equipment, are they putting a deposit down? Because you just said you worry about them not coming back. So return rates, we talk about return rates for cats. Return rates for equipment is probably worse than return rates for cats. So, does Asset Tiger ensure that the return rates are better, or is the jury still out?
I think the jury is still out. However, what I noticed about Asset Tiger is that it is a little bit more official because when they check it out, they have to read a disclaimer basically stating that they're going to return it in the condition that they borrowed it. But they have to sign it. So again, it's on your smartphone. So you hand it to them and they sign it with their finger. They are then emailed a copy of the contract that they just signed. And then the system is automatically set up. You set it up how you want it to be. But the system will automatically email them reminders. And then it'll also email the administrator reminders. Hey, Sally still has 4 traps. They're due back on Friday. And, so that I know I'm anticipating some traps coming back. So it seems more official. It also is a lot easier because I can go in, like I know that Sally did spay neuter 2 Saturdays ago, and she's done with her colony, but her traps aren't due back until next Saturday. But because I can go into the system, I can see who has traps. I can, refer to that. I can say, oh, I know Sally's done with those. I'm just going to go ahead and ping her and say, hey, Sally, you want to come by Wednesday and drop off the traps kind of thing. So you can kind of preemptively take care of that. But just knowing me, I know that I'm not going to just remember who has traps and who's done. And so that's why I think the system is so great for me with memory issues to be able to go and look at a list and be able to tell, who has the traps and then I can preemptively do that as well. But the system will remind them as well. So,
And then the folks can't then say, oh, well, I've got my neighbor over here and they've got some cats that I didn't realize were there. Can I give the traps over to them? That you have to re-register them or just hold it in your own name and you're responsible for tracking the traps down with your neighbor?
Yeah, that is a worry. That is a concern. But that was a concern before I had Asset Tiger. So, at least this way, I'm better tracking who has the traps and who's using them. And for our organization, we would require them to return the traps and then we can loan them to the neighbor because we want them to sign up for our list for 2 reasons. One, we want to know who's trapping and make sure that they're on a good path. But second, we want to capture their information so that I can solicit them for donations down the road. So I want I want to be able to capture their information. So we would encourage it, and I would be happy to go out to their house and with my phone and register to them. But we don't require deposits. There's just so many people out there that can't afford $50 or $20 for. We're doing free spay neuter, so for then us to charge a deposit is counterintuitive. So, yeah. But I can respect other organizations that feel the need to do that. It's fine, however they want to do it.
So many people say, there's no money out there. There aren't any grants out there. And it sounds like this program was funded by a grant. We actually interviewed Sally Williams from Mission Meow when she first got started. So we'll make sure we have that episode in our show notes also so people can go back and find out more about the organization. But, my stomach turns when people go, there are no opportunities out there. There's just nothing. There are opportunities like this for our small organizations. How did you find Mission Meow?
So I got invited to join a Facebook group by a colleague, and the Facebook group was really centered around positive rescue stuff. So there was no bashing. It was just all positive. And right now we need that. I don't need divisiveness. I don't need any of that other stuff. So I joined, and then the next day I saw a post about Mission Meow, and I was suspicious because, you hear that there's no money for TNR, spay neuter or anything. And I was like, Well, I'll go check it out. So I checked it out, and the application process was very easy, just like the Community Cats podcast grant application is very easy. Both organizations definitely cater to grassroots, volunteer organizations. Nothing is overly complicated. And so we went for it, and I didn't expect to get funded in our first round that we applied. But Sally saw what we were trying to do, and so she jumped in with both feet and supported us.
I think it's wonderful. I think it's great, the work that she's doing. And I'm glad her program has taken off. And honestly, I just think we all should always keep the eyes and ears open for opportunities. So tell me a little bit more about your work locally. So you talked about the clinics that you have on a monthly basis. You have the 9 appointments during the week, but you do adoptions.
Yeah.
So how much of your world is around adoptions versus trap, neuter, return?
Yeah. So our adoption program is maybe a little different than some other organizations. I'm not really sure, but we really focus most of our adoption program on pulling at-risk cats from municipal shelters in our area. We do pull some kittens from feral colonies, but generally that program is centered around empowering caretakers to self-foster. So we will loan them playpens, litter boxes. We'll give them the food. We provide all the medical care. We spay, neuter, and everything if the caretakers are able to foster the kittens. And then we have 3 retail adoption centers that we partner with to be able to place the kittens up for adoption. So if they can do that part of the work, then we can get them adopted out and reduce their colony numbers. But our tried and true, dedicated day in and day out fosters are really dedicated to helping the municipal shelters in our area with their at-risk cats. And so we do take in senior cats, disabled cats, injured, sick, and the healthy, the cute and the cuddly. We take those as well. But, so we take a variety. But so then I would say about half of our program is adoption and half is TNR. Although we're trying to grow the TNR as we're expanding into the adjacent county.
Are you at a point where you thought your organization would be at this point in time? Or as a leader of an organization, are you happy where you are? Or do you think that there's more that needs to be done?
I would say if you asked me that question 15 years ago, I would say that we should be larger, bigger, doing more than what we are. Now that I know what I know and I can compare ourselves to other organizations that are similar, I think we're on par. I think if you compare ourselves to other organizations, I think we have more systems in place. I think our fundraising is maybe a little more progressive than some other organizations. But, I think I'm really comfortable with where we are. I'm probably sometimes a little overly cautious. I'm risk adverse. I'm very, very concerned about ever being in the news for something bad. I don't want to be that organization that had the foster that had 37 cats in their basement. So that actually did happen in Indianapolis before I had this organization. And so that's where my mindset always is how can we be very cautious, very calculated, very concerned about what we're doing so that we can make sure that we're here next year to keep doing what we're doing. So that's where so I think we're in a good spot. But of course, I wish that we were bigger, doing more, had more money in the bank, of course.
What is life like for community cats in Shelby County?
So Shelby County is unusual. I would say that we have a gentleman's agreement with the local municipal shelter. They don't trap cats anymore. They got rid of their traps. And they refer all calls to us, essentially, for anybody who's calling about nuisance cats. Unfortunately, they do still accept cats and traps. And they do have a barn cat program. We wish that program is successful for them. But the nice thing is that because we do have money in the bank, we do have traps, we do have resources, we do have spay-neuter appointments. Essentially, anybody who calls about a community cat, the first question that I have for them is, do you want to get the cat fixed? And it's free. And I have all the equipment that you need. So there's really no stumbling block for people to be able to TNR the cats that they might be feeding because we are in a good position here in Shelby County. And I think that's why we're able to expand into the next county over. We feel confident enough that we'll be able to help them grow their program as well. And maybe they'll have a group of people who come together and form their own organization and take over their own TNR in their own county. That'd be fantastic. But until then, we're going to go ahead and continue helping them because we're in a good spot in Shelby County.
That's great. And many times when I would go off into other areas outside of our core area with the Merrimack River Feline Rescue Society, the little pods would spin off on their own after a while, right? You're just sort of like launching them a little bit. And then if you find a core group of people in that community, they'll want to take ownership of it and they'll have learned from the mothership, right? And then they'll go off and do their own thing, which is really, from my standpoint as a leader of an organization, it's one of your proudest moments when you see another organization, group of people working with you, learning from you, and then they go off and they are
do better than you. Yeah, they do better and more.
Right. And you start learning and you cross channel from one to the other for sure.
Yeah, that's your dream all the time. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I think that's great. And the more of these little sprouts that we can have, the better off we're going to be. I understand there's a place for large scale trap neuter return programs, but I also feel like small is beautiful in many cases because then you talk about risk, right? If we lost this veterinarian, we'd be in such. So having many options and many people who know how to do the work is really very helpful.
Yes, it is. And I think the other part of that is, having community and going to the veterinarians that are in your community and being able to partner with them instead of having to go, an hour and a half away. It would be really great to be able to nurture those relationships with your local veterinarians and let them help in their backyard. So, I'm the first one to say when somebody's wanting to start a nonprofit organization, really? Do you really want to do that? Are you sure? Are you sure you're not duplicating services? Have you surveyed the landscape to see what's going on? But when it comes to TNR, boy, I am quick to say, I'll help you start a 501c3. When can we meet? When can we do this? Because I think every county, every region, every area needs to have an organization that is strictly dedicated to their region. And I don't mean to promote regionalism or territory or anything like that, but I just really believe in community and helping in your backyard and your neighbors and the people that you see at Walmart on Saturday doing grocery shopping. That's what I like to see is people coming together and helping each other. And it just doesn't happen when you're covering half the state. It just doesn't. So,
right. It's like your library, your church, your TNR group, right? And all of these factors, they come together, they work together. We have our board meetings at the library. We have our Catmobiles parked at the church or the vaccination clinics are at the church. And so it's all about the local social services that are there. And you're working with police, you're working with fire, you're working with all of the, animal control, you're all the political beings in town also. They're focused on a small community base. I do think whether you're calling them like community cat action teams and maybe you're a large umbrella, but then you have these action teams that are participating in each area or they're their own independent 501c3, that doesn't matter. But the fact that there's a home base in that town or in that specific area is really important.
I am always impressed when I hear about individuals in other areas that are not a formal nonprofit organization, and they've done amazing things just with a few people and a lot of will. So that's always inspiring as an organization to see what other people are doing. They just figure it out. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, they do. And a lot of it revolves around huge heart, for sure. Huge heart, huge passion. And with that being said, KerryAnn, if folks are interested in finding out more about the work that you do, how would they do that?
Yeah, so you can always reach out to us at shelbycats.com. We're pretty active on our website. And you can always reach out to KerryAnn at shelbycats.com. We're always happy to answer any questions. And I hope that we'll see you on the Community Cats podcast group. There's always lively discussions over there about what's going on in the feral cat world.
And is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners today?
Well, I would hope that everybody would apply for a Community Cats podcast grant and get that going. And look around you and see who else is helping and could become involved more in feral cat advocacy work. I think we can always use more people in our area.
Everybody should be a community cat advocate and turn their passion for cats into action. KerryAnn, I want to thank you so much for spending time with me today, being a guest on the show, and I hope we'll have you on again in the future.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it, Stacy.
That's it for this week. Please head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review. We love to hear what you think, and a 5-star review really helps others find the show. You can also join the conversation with listeners, cat caretakers, and me on Facebook and Instagram. And don't forget to hit follow or subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss a single show. Thanks for listening, and thank you for everything that you do to help create a safe and healthy world for cats.